Show you guys this feeding top cover that I built for a 5-frame hive. It's nothing fancy, and you'll find them all over the place. It's not original. But one thing I want to show you that I did on this one's a little different is, well, for one, I put screen in here, number 8 hardware cloth, so it's 1/8 inch mesh. Put that in there just so that I can go out whenever I want, take feed jars on and off. The bees can't come out and try to get me. I'm not really worried about that, you know. But the other thing is, I cut these holes with a 3-inch hole saw, and my jars here, something like a 2 7/8. So when you drop it in there, now it sits on the screen. But let me show you on this lid over here. If I drop it in there, the jar sits down inside, and that's fine, except that it hangs out the bottom, and so it'd cause issues with violations of bee space, and I don't want to deal with that. So the way this works is it actually rests on the wire. So if we tip this up and peek underneath, you see the jar is not sticking through because the jar is sitting on the wire. So the wire serves a double purpose. Keeps me from the bees trying to zip out and get me if they're pissy for some reason, and also supports the jar. But the most important thing I want to show you on this is I'm always preaching bee space. And what I've learned with these flat top covers, migratory covers of any sort, you have a violation of bee space on the top. Because, you know, this is going to be the inside. You have a violation of bee space because this lays flat on top of the edges of the box, and that gives you only 1/8 of an inch between the top of the frame and the bottom of the lid. And so that's a perfect spot for small hive beetles to get in there and hide out and hang out. And it also causes the bees to a lot of times glue the frames to the inner cover, or to the migratory cover. So what I've done with this one is I've gone around the edge and put a piece of 1/4 inch glue on. I just ripped it to fit 3/4 by 3/4 inch wide, and it's 1/4 inch thick. So that should make that bee space be the proper 3/8 of an inch. So 1/4 inch plus 1/8 of an inch on the top of the box gives you that 3/8 that you need. And part of the reason I want to do this too is because I've noticed that when I have this feeder cover on the hive, the bees can only access the feed between 2 frames. And you know, you've got your jar lid there has got perforations all over it. Well, what good is it if the bees can only get to this little narrow strip and this little narrow strip? So by doing this, the bees should be able to get full access to the entire face of the screen so they can get to all those perforations in the jar. So long as, you know, it's not too thick for them to stick their little proboscis through the screen and jar, but I don't think it will be. Ideally, the jar just drips very slowly anyway. So anyway, like I said, just want to show this to you, the idea of putting the screen on the inside and putting the 1/4 inch glue on. Some people don't want to do this screen because they like to be able to open that up, and especially if it's a mating nuke, they can just open up the jar and drop a queen cell in here. I mean, that's really smart. That works well. But I use these, right now anyway, I use them strictly for feed covers. So when I make mating nukes up, I actually open the hive and put the queen cell in there somewhere that I want. I don't just open it up and pop it in, you know, drop it in through the hole. So anyway, just want to show this to you. I want to get the rest of them put together, slap a coat of primer and paint on them, and then get them set out. I thought I'd mention real quick, probably have somebody bust my chops about using plywood. I really don't advise using plywood for external applications on beehives either. I use it for the structure underneath of my outer covers because that's covered externally with the galvalume flashing to protect it. But because these feeders, and I say this, they're not designed to be left on the hive all the time, and they're just kind of in a pinch, throw it together real quick. I don't like to think about building stuff on a disposable basis, but these are actually all just scraps of plywood that I had that weren't really big enough to do anything else with, so I made them into these feeder covers. But the one thing I was going to say was, if you must use plywood on an external application, make sure you seal it real good. So I've got a coat of primer on this right now. What I did was I just took all 5 of them and stacked them up. So that allowed me to paint all the edges real quick. And I went ahead and painted the top of this one just because it's on top and I could. All the other ones inside the stack aren't painted yet. But the most important thing on plywood definitely is to paint the edges, so you don't get weather in there and make the glue start coming apart. It'll probably still happen, hopefully just not as fast. So anyway, I've gone around, and again, this is Kills latex primer. Gone all the way around the edge with that, and then I'll let it dry out here for, I don't know, a couple hours. It won't take long. It's plenty warm down here, plus I got a fan sitting here going, so let it dry out real good, and then I'll get a coat of paint put on it before I go put these actually all in the hive. So anyway, just want to share that with you. Make sure you paint it real good and focus on the cut edge On plywood, that's every edge. But if you're working with solid woods, focus on the cut edge to make sure wherever you really roughed up that grain, make sure that's where you put the most sealant on it. So that's it.